Hare Krishna. Question: if a devotee suffers from mental health problems such as depression, does that mean that the devotee is not practicing bhakti seriously? Answer: not necessarily. We shouldn't make simplistic judgments like this. Whatever is necessary to help a devotee to be well situated, to be peacefully situated for doing one's material and spiritual life, that is what we need to guide devotees towards. If we make value judgments, then we can alienate devotees, and alienate devotees not just from us but also from the practice of bhakti itself. We need to know that different people come with different karmic baggages, and if we are going to talk from the absolute perspective, then we could say that bhakti, actually, if we surrender to Krishna, then Krishna, aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami, Krishna says, I am going to free you from all sinful reactions. So then a devotee should not have any problems at all. So if a devotee is physically sick, if a devotee has some fracture, devotee gets some disease, does that mean that devotee is still having sins? That means the devotee has not surrendered to Krishna? No. The way, what karmic baggage we have and how that plays out in our life and how Krishna orchestrates us towards him through various ways, we cannot know that. We cannot put a stereotype on that. And sometimes where the mental health challenges are not understood, the need for mental care is sometimes stigmatized. That means, say, if somebody is depressed, then that is, oh, you are a weak-minded person, you are a weak person, you should be a strong. So it is, we cannot make value judgmental statements like this. Even if it were true, and we will discuss whether it is philosophically true or not, even if it were true, how helpful is it for a devotee? Our goal is not just to speak the truth, our goal is to help others by our speaking of the truth. So even if we assume that somebody is not practicing bhakti seriously, then the fact is that none of us, we can say that we are practicing bhakti with full seriousness. We all have our struggles, we all have our lapses, and Krishna Krishna recognizes that. Krishna says that in 7.28 he says, unless we are free from sinful activities entirely, yasham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam tedandu moha nirmukta bhajante mam drudhavrataha. So that drudhavrata bhakti, the determined bhakti, cannot manifest unless we have done punya, a lot of punya, and avoided papa for a good amount of time. So at our sadhaka stage, especially because we also live in a culture that is highly materialistic, it is not easy for us to become purified and to practice bhakti steadily. So even if it were true that somebody is not practicing bhakti seriously, and that's why the mental problems are there, the point is, what is the solution? Now, the mind sometimes becomes like an immovable wall, and we have to find a way to break the wall. Sometimes the mind just blocks us, chokes us, and we have to. The principle is yena kena prakarena mana Krishna niveshayet. So if we tell someone that you have your problems with the mind, chant Hare Krishna. But the problem is that chanting Hare Krishna requires concentration, and if the mind is hyper distracted, then the mind goes on its own journey here and there, thinking of negative things and depressing one more and more, and one is not able to focus on chanting. So more chanting may actually worsen the mind's problems if one is not able to absorb oneself in the chanting. Now, is there a deficiency of that devotee that one is not able to absorb? Well, the point is, we cannot idealize and make abstract claims. We have to see where people are, and we have to help them from where they are. So if someone is not able to absorb oneself in the chanting of the holy names, that does not mean that that does not mean that there is no hope for that devotee. Yes, there is a prescribed amount of chanting that we do, but it is not that more chanting will necessarily lead to the immediate solution of whatever problem one is having. Different people are of different natures, and if chanting helps us, that's wonderful. But that doesn't mean that it is going to help in the same way everyone else. For some devotees, maybe studying scripture and understanding, analyzing, becoming intellectually absorbed may be of greater help. For some other people who are more outgoing, and for those who are intellectuals, scripture study may help. For those who are more of an intellectual for social orientation, outgoing, then for them, doing some getting involved in some services which lets them interact with many people, with the devotees and others, that may be of greater engagement. So we all have to fight a war, and we cannot go fight a war against the mind, and we cannot go win a war with a stereotyped plan. If the enemy attacks with some other weapon, suppose somebody decides to go and fight a war with the swords, army decides, and suddenly we find that the enemy is shooting them down with bow and arrow. What do? Before they reach the enemy with the sword, they will be slaughtered. So they have to shift to bows and arrows. So the holy name has absolute power. At the same time, we have to concentrate and connect so that we can tap that power and empower ourselves. And the whole process of bhakti is there to help us connect with Krishna. The holy name is the essential process, but that doesn't mean that we cannot take shelter of the other processes. And in some cases, just as when devotees have physical health issues, it's not that we expect chanting to deal with the physical health issues. It's not that suppose somebody is sick, one will chant Hare Krishna and without taking any medicines one will get cured. Now the mind is subtle matter. Subtle matter means it is between gross matter and spirit. So the holy sound of the holy name is spiritual, it is transcendental. So now the chanting of the holy names, we say, is manastrayate iti mantra. It frees the mind from all its afflictions. That is true, definitely. But that may sometimes be a long-term solution. That the mind is ultimately the cause of the agitations, is lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, illusion, these anarthas within us, and purifying them is often a lifelong process. So nothing can offer the ultimate solution that chanting offers. But at the same time, while we are chanting, we need to have a peaceful mind. Krishna's in the Bhagavatam also it is said that evam prasanna manaso bhaktvat, so it is said that tadarjastamo bhava kamalobhadayashi chetayiterana viddam stam sattve prasidati evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata bhagavad tattva vijnana mukta sangasya jayate. So it says that we practice bhakti when actually we become free from the lower modes. At that time we become joyfully situated in bhakti, and with the joyful situation in bhakti, then one starts getting rapid spiritual realization. We have bhagavad tattva vijnanam, we get realized knowledge. So the point is that we have to do what we have to do. So if we need to study scripture, if we need to have more association in terms of one-to-one interactions, more guhyam akhyati pruchhyati, we should need to associate with those who also have similar interests. If we have certain issues, we need to associate with those who help us deal with the issues. If others, they just offer value judgments to us, then that will not be very helpful for us in dealing with the issues. Now in certain extreme cases where we need to know that the mind brain is how exactly it is connected, that science doesn't know, but it's a complex connection. Sometimes some people may have some brain problems which need medical attention. So for example, there was one devotee, very serious devotee, very sincere devotee, very advanced, very senior devotee also. This devotee just couldn't sleep, and so because of not being able to sleep for days and days together, the whole life was getting disrupted. Now that devotee would stay awake and chant at night, try as much as possible to chant, but the body needs sleep. And after much investigation, they found when this devotee went to a psychiatrist and they did some study, they found that there was a particular chemical in the brain that was less, and then because of that shortage, that chemical imbalance, was not able to sleep. And then that devotee got that chemical, artificially, that through some tablets, that chemical was implemented, and the sleep was restored. And afterward, the devotee was able to practice bhakti nicely. Now, to diagnose that, a simple routine visit to a physician did not help. He had to go to a psychiatrist. And now, if there is value judgment, why does a devotee have to go to psychiatrist? That is undesirable. Just chant Hare Krishna. No. So in some cases, not all cases, in some cases where there is a neurochemical imbalance or there is a neurological problem, then there needs to be, it's a physical chemical problem in the brain, and then that needs a physical chemical solution. So there is no need to stigmatize anyone that you are not a serious devotee, so that's why you are getting problems. Just as some devotees may get problems, more problems physically than others, some others may get more problems socially than others. So some others may find themselves in environments where that's very harsh. So these adhyatmic, adhibhautik, adidevik kleshas can come to different devotees in different degrees and in different ways. So for some there might be more mental problems. Overall, it seems that one way Kali Yuga is progressing is by increasing in general the afflictions of people at a mental level. So if that is the overall trend of Kali Yuga, just as in Kali Yuga we may, if there is a congested traffic situation, if there are more road accidents, even devotees may also be a part of accidents. So similarly, when the overall atmosphere is of stress and psychological disturbances, then even devotees may be troubled by psychological problems. And if that is happening, chanting is definitely vital, indispensable as a part of the long-term ultimate therapy. At the same time, if devotees feel the need for other things, including in some special cases, some psychological psychiatric intervention assistance, then that can be done in a that does not have to be stigmatized. It is best if the devotees can consult someone who is a psychologist or psychiatrist who is either a devotee or is devotionally inclined, or is at least having some sympathy with spiritual life conception. Some psychologists, psychiatrists are blatantly atheistic, and their counsel may we have to know that psychology, psychiatry are also highly speculative, and that's why there is one major concern, and it's a very valid concern, that sometimes psychologists, psychiatrists give counsel which may be utterly anti-devotional. So for example, if somebody is depressed, they may say that just go out and indulge, binge, whatever your desires you have, you go out and enjoy, and when you enjoy, you see that you can enjoy, then you will feel happy. And in this way they may urge breaking of all regulative principles as a means of emotional release. Now that is something which devotees cannot do and should not do. We have to know that psychology, psychiatry, these are they can be very speculative fields. There are books written by psychiatrists themselves about how, for example, there's a book called Cracked, which explains how psychiatry is creating more problems than solving them. And there it is described how at one there were about a survey was done where 12 different psychiatrists were described symptoms of a particular set of symptoms, and based on those symptoms, all these 12 psychiatrists diagnosed it as different problems. One psychiatrist said this is this problem, another psychiatrist this is this problem, this is this problem, and they all gave a significantly different kind of therapy based on that. And actually, what was the problem? So the problem often is that in the case of psychiatry, there is very rarely is something physically tangible. It's not that we can take a germ on a on a tube and diagnose and then prescribe a treatment. So there are a variety of symptoms, and depending on which symptoms a particular psychiatrist may stress, thus a particular set of symptoms may be lead to inference of a particular kind of disorder. So we shouldn't get too overawed by the big sounding words that some psychiatrists may use. And in general, we know that the spiritual wisdom is the ultimate solution, but in some specific situations where the psychiatric psychological guidance is not incompatible with the principles of bhakti, at certain times that can be helpful. And there are, as I said, there are devotees also practicing this, and there are devotee psychiatrists, devotee psychologists, and they often do a valuable service to the devotee community as well as to the outside community. So in general, rather than seeing mental health problems as a sign of personal weakness or spiritual weakness, we should know that this is a part of the overall trend of Kali Yuga, where karmic reactions do hit people hard, many people hard in terms of mental health problems, and we need to be sympathetic in helping people to be situated right now in a way that is peaceful, at least modestly peaceful, so that they can pursue their life properly and they can practice bhakti properly. So the practice of bhakti as the ultimate solution should not be given up. At the same time, the practice of bhakti, if it in many cases depending on one's psychophysical nature, depending on one's karmic situation, the practice of bhakti may offer immediate solutions, but we should not make that demand of people. Just as we don't say that bhakti can act as a substitute for uh, taking of medicine. Similarly, bhakti may not act as a substitute in some cases for the taking of some kind of psychological psychiatric treatment, and but such treatment should be taken with discernment, not accepting it blindly, knowing that it is highly speculative, and we can take those principles which are compatible with the broad principles of bhakti, or at least not blatantly incompatible. So rather than stigmatizing, there should be an overall mood of assisting, and especially those who are interested in psychology, psychiatry, or devotees who are psychology psychiatrists, they have a great opportunity. There is the physical, there is the mental, and the spiritual. Much of modern society is progressing in the physical realm, and people are not really interested in the spiritual realm in general. But everybody is, at sooner sometime or the other, troubled at the mental level. And at the physical level, the kind of technological wizardry that we see, at the mental level, there is nothing like that. Modern science and technology offer very little to help people deal with the mental level. So spiritual wisdom can offer valuable insights for dealing with the mental level. So whatever insights are there in psychology, psychiatry right now, and if they can be integrated with the spiritual level and a compatible, complete therapeutic methodology is offered, then that can be a not only a invaluable contribution to the overall mental health of people, and it can also be a important breakthrough in helping people appreciate the wisdom, the relevance and the potency of the spiritual wisdom of the bhakti tradition. Thank you. Hare Krishna.